Marcus Ashford stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse suite, watching Manhattan's skyline glitter beneath a moonless sky. At 38, he had everything a man could want. $3 billion in the bank, a pharmaceutical empire that spanned 6 continents, properties in every major city worth mentioning. Yet tonight, like every night for the past 5 years, he felt the hollow ache of something missing. His doctor's words from 7 years ago still echoed in his mind. Irreversible damage from childhood chemotherapy. 0 sperm count. No chance of biological children. Ever. The diagnosis had come after his divorce. His ex-wife, Sarah, had wanted children desperately. They'd tried for 3 years before he finally got tested. The results had destroyed their marriage faster than any affair could have. She'd looked at him with such pity when the doctor delivered the news. That look had hurt worse than the diagnosis itself. Marcus had accepted it, buried himself in work, built his fortune higher, dated casually but never seriously. What was the point when he couldn't give anyone the future they deserved? And tonight, after finalizing a merger that would add another $200 million to his net worth, he decided to do something he rarely allowed himself. Let loose. The hotel bar downstairs hummed with the kind of energy only Friday nights in New York could produce. Expensive suits mixed with designer dresses. Laughter floated over jazz music. Marcus ordered his usual scotch and tried to remember the last time he'd actually enjoyed one of these nights. That's when he saw her. She sat alone at the corner of the bar, nursing what looked like a glass of white wine. Dark hair cascaded over bare shoulders, a simple black dress that somehow outshone every piece of haute couture in the room. But it wasn't her looks that caught his attention. It was the way she stared at her phone, thumb hovering over the screen, face twisted in an expression he recognized all too well. Grief mixed with rage, mixed with helplessness. Marcus found himself walking toward her before his brain could catch up. "You look like you could use better company than that phone." She glanced up, eyes red-rimmed but defiant. "And you look like every other man who thinks money can buy conversation." He smiled despite himself. "I'm Marcus, and I promise I'm not trying to buy anything." "Emma," she set her phone down. "I'm sorry. That was rude. I just got some bad news. Want to talk about it? Want to help me forget about it instead?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility and danger. Marcus knew he should walk away. He had rules about this kind of thing. No complications, no attachments, no risk. But something about the vulnerability in her eyes mixed with that fierce independence made him throw every rule out the window. 1 drink turned into 3. 3 turned into stories about their lives, carefully edited to protect the parts that hurt too much. Emma worked as a pediatric nurse at Mount Sinai. She'd just learned her younger brother had relapsed with leukemia for the 3rd time, the same disease that had taken their parents 5 years ago. She was drowning in medical bills that had already consumed her savings, her retirement account, and maxed out every credit card she owned. The hospital was threatening to move her brother to a lower level of care because she couldn't keep up with payments. She was 26 and felt like she was failing everyone she loved. "My parents made me promise to take care of him." Emma's voice broke. "They died thinking I'd keep him safe, and I can't. I've worked double shifts for 2 years straight, and it's still not enough. It's never enough." Marcus didn't tell her about his billions, didn't mention the penthouse upstairs or the pharmaceutical company that probably manufactured half the drugs keeping her brother alive. He just listened, and somewhere between her 3rd glass of wine and his 4th scotch, listening turned into touching. Hands brushing, knees pressed together under the bar. Eyes locked in a way that made the rest of the world disappear. "I don't normally do this." Emma's admission came soft, vulnerable. "I haven't been with anyone since before my parents died. I just don't want to feel this alone tonight." "Neither do I. If you're interested in stories like this that will keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We're just hitting 10,000 subscribers, and I couldn't do this without you." Now back to Marcus and Emma's story. They ended up in his suite 4 floors above the bar. What happened next was supposed to be simple, physical, a way for 2 lonely people to forget their pain for a few hours. But simple became complicated the moment their lips met. Complicated became consuming when clothes hit the floor. And consuming became something neither of them had words for when they finally collapsed against Egyptian cotton sheets as dawnlight crept through the windows. For the first time in 5 years, Marcus felt whole, like maybe the broken parts of him could still connect to another human being. Like maybe sterile didn't mean completely dead inside. Emma traced patterns on his chest, her touch feather-light. Thank you for tonight, for making me forget. Even if it's just for a few hours. What if it didn't have to be just tonight? She pulled away slightly, propping herself up on one elbow. Marcus, I saw the penthouse, the suit, the watch that probably cost more than my annual salary. We live in different worlds. Tonight was beautiful, but it's not real life. Why can't it be? Because real life is me going back to my studio apartment in Queens tomorrow, working 60-hour weeks to pay bills I'll never catch up on, watching my brother die slowly because I can't afford the treatment that might save him. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You seem like a good man, but I can't be someone's charity case. I won't be. You're not. You could never be. But he didn't push, because deep down, he knew she was right. His world was board meetings and private jets. Hers was double shifts and medical debt. They'd had one perfect night. Sometimes that had to be enough. Marcus woke first. Emma lay tangled in sheets beside him, hair spread across the pillow like dark silk. Beautiful, peaceful, everything he couldn't have in his carefully controlled life. He left a note with his assistant's number. If you ever need anything. He meant it as a lifeline, a way for her to reach out if things got desperate, but he didn't expect to hear from her. Women like Emma had too much pride to ask for help from men they'd spent one night with. Emma was gone when his assistant arrived that morning with coffee in his schedule. Marcus told himself it was better this way. Clean break, no complications. He threw himself back into work. A new drug trial in Germany, negotiations with a biotech firm in Singapore, board meetings and charity galas, and all the things that filled his days but never quite filled the empty spaces. But he couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she'd laughed at his terrible jokes, the fierce love in her voice when she talked about her brother, the softness in her eyes right before she fell asleep. He found himself looking for her in crowds, checking his phone hoping she'd call, feeling like an idiot because one night shouldn't have this much power over him. 3 months passed. Marcus had almost convinced himself to move on. Then his assistant buzzed his intercom with an urgency he'd never heard in her voice. Mr. Ashford, there's a young woman here to see you. She says it's important. She says her name is Emma. His heart stopped. Send her up. Emma looked different. Pale, thinner, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She wore scrubs like she'd come straight from the hospital. And when she walked into his office, her hands shook as they clutched her purse. I'm pregnant. 3 words. Simple words. Impossible words. Marcus felt the room tilt, the walls close in, the air leave his lungs. That's not possible. I'm sterile. I've been tested multiple times. 0 sperm count. There's no way. I took 5 tests. They're all positive. I'm 12 weeks along. And before you ask, there hasn't been anyone else. Just you. Emma's voice cracked. I know what you said about being sterile. I believe you believe that. But Marcus, I'm pregnant, and you're the only person I've been with in over 2 years. She pulled out a folder from her purse and handed it to him with shaking hands. Ultrasound photos, medical records, blood test results. Proof that the impossible had somehow become reality. Marcus stared at the grainy black and white image of a tiny form curled in on itself. A head, tiny limbs, a flicker that the technician's notes said was a heartbeat. His child, his biological child, the thing he'd been told he could never have. The thing he'd mourned and accepted and buried so deep, he'd convinced himself he didn't want it anymore. I don't expect anything from you. Emma's words came fast, defensive, like she'd rehearsed this speech 100 times. I just thought you had a right to know. I'll raise the baby on my own. I've already figured out childcare and I can pick up extra shifts, and my brother is in remission now, so the bills are more manageable, and I needed you to know. You deserve to know. But I won't trap you into anything. I won't ask for child support or try to change your life or anything like that." She turned to leave. Marcus found his voice. "Wait." She froze, hand on the doorknob. "Don't go. Please, I need a minute to process this, but don't go." What followed was the strangest conversation of Marcus's life. He had Emma sit down, ordered her food because she looked like she hadn't eaten in days, called his doctor while she picked at a sandwich she clearly had no appetite for, arranged for immediate testing. Within 3 hours, they had the results confirming what Marcus still couldn't quite believe. Against every medical prediction, against every test he'd taken over the past 7 years, Marcus Ashford was not completely sterile. He had an extremely low sperm count, less than 1 million per milliliter when normal was 15 million or more. Functionally infertile. The doctor gave them odds, less than 1% chance of natural conception, but not impossible. The baby was his. Marcus sat in stunned silence as the doctor left. Emma watched him with eyes full of fear and something that looked like resignation. "I'll go now. I'm sorry to drop this on you. I thought you should know." "No." Marcus finally found words. "No, don't apologize. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. I've spent 7 years believing I could never have biological children, and now you're telling me I'm going to be a father. I understand if you don't want to be involved." Emma stood, gathering her things. "This wasn't planned. This wasn't something either of us wanted. I can do this alone. What if I don't want you to?" The question hung between them. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, don't feel obligated because of some sense of responsibility or guilt. I told you I won't be anyone's charity case. Not even for this. This isn't about charity. This is about my child." He gestured to the ultrasound photo still clutched in his hand. "This is about the fact that I'm being given something I thought I'd lost forever. Let me help. Please, at least let me help." Emma left his office that evening with a check for $100,000 to cover medical expenses and time off work. Marcus told himself he was just being responsible, doing the right thing. But the truth was more complicated. He couldn't stop thinking about that ultrasound image, about the fact that he was going to be a father, about the nurse with sad eyes who'd given him the one thing he thought he'd lost forever. He called her the next day, asked about her next doctor's appointment, asked if he could come. Emma said yes, her voice wary but not hostile. The appointment was awkward. They sat in the waiting room like strangers, forced together by circumstance, which Marcus supposed they were. But when the ultrasound technician squeezed gel onto Emma's barely visible bump and that grainy image appeared on the screen, something shifted. "There's the heartbeat, strong and steady." The technician smiled. "Baby looks perfect. Right on track for 14 weeks. Marcus watched the tiny form move on screen, watched Emma's face soften as she stared at their child, and felt something crack open in his chest that he'd kept sealed for years. After the appointment, he asked her to lunch. She hesitated, then agreed. They went to a small cafe near the hospital, talked about logistics, doctor appointments he wanted to attend, baby items he wanted to buy, financial arrangements that would ensure she never had to work double shifts while pregnant. Emma resisted at first. Too much pride, too much fear of being indebted to someone she barely knew. But Marcus was persistent in a way that wasn't pushy. He framed everything as being about the baby, about making sure his child had everything it needed. It was easier for Emma to accept help when she could tell herself it wasn't about her, but it was about her. Marcus was falling for her all over again with every lunch, every doctor's appointment, every late-night text when she couldn't sleep and needed someone to talk to about her fears. He was falling for the way she talked to her belly when she thought no one was listening. The way she researched every aspect of pregnancy like she was studying for medical boards. The fierce determination to give their child the best possible start, even though she was terrified. At 20 weeks, they found out they were having a girl. Emma cried happy tears for the first time since Marcus had known her. He held her hand through the ultrasound and felt his heart expand in ways he didn't know were possible. "I want to name her Hope." Emma said it quietly, almost like she was afraid he'd say no. Because that's what she is. Hope for something better. Hope that maybe all the bad stuff had a purpose. Hope is perfect. They grew closer over the next 2 months. Marcus found excuses to see her beyond just doctor's appointments. Coffee before she went to work, dinner after her shifts, shopping for baby items where they debated the merits of different strollers with an intensity that made other shoppers stare. Emma started to let her guard down, started to let Marcus in. She'd tell him stories about her patients at the hospital, about her brother who was doing well in remission, about her parents and the promises she'd made them. Marcus told her about his childhood cancer, about the chemotherapy that had saved his life but stolen his fertility, about his ex-wife and the marriage that had crumbled under the weight of that diagnosis. They were building something. Neither of them wanted to name it, didn't want to jinx it, but it was there, growing alongside the baby Emma carried. Then everything shattered. Emma was 27 weeks pregnant when she collapsed at work. Marcus got the call from Mount Sinai's emergency department. Severe preeclampsia, blood pressure dangerously high, protein in her urine. The baby needed to be delivered immediately or they could both die. He made it to the hospital in 15 minutes, burst through the emergency department doors like a man possessed, found Emma being prepped for an emergency C-section, tears streaming down her face, IV lines running from both arms. "I'm scared." She grabbed his hand when he appeared at her bedside. "She's too early. She's only 27 weeks. She's not ready. I'm not ready. I can't lose her, Marcus. I can't lose another person I love." "You're not going to lose her. You're not going to lose anyone." Marcus kissed her forehead, tasting salt from her tears. "You're both fighters. You're both going to be fine. Promise me. If something happens, if you have to choose, you choose her. You save hope. Promise me." "Emma, don't. Promise me." The desperation in her voice broke him. "I promise. But it won't come to that. You're both going to be fine." He wasn't allowed in the operating room. Something about it being too high risk, too many complications, too much that could go wrong. So Marcus sat in a waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and fear, hands shaking, praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. "Please, if you're listening, please let them both be okay. I'll give anything, everything. Just please let them be okay." 2 hours felt like 20. Finally, a doctor emerged, still in surgical scrubs, mask pulled down around their neck. "Mr. Ashford, the baby is in the NICU, 3 pounds, 1 ounce. Breathing on her own, which is remarkable for 27 weeks. She's critical but stable. The neonatologist will come talk to you shortly about her care plan. And Emma?" The doctor's expression shifted. Something closed off. Professional distance replacing human emotion. "Ms. Brooks lost a significant amount of blood during delivery. We had to perform an emergency hysterectomy to stop the bleeding. She's alive, she's stable, but it was touch and go for a while." Marcus felt the world tilt. "Can I see her? She's in recovery, still unconscious from anesthesia. You can see her in about an hour. But Mr. Ashford, I need to prepare you. The blood loss was severe. There may be complications, organ damage, cognitive issues. We won't know the full extent until she wakes up." He spent the next hour in the NICU, watching his daughter sleep in her incubator. She was impossibly small. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped and hummed. A ventilator helped her breathe. IVs pumped fluids and medications into veins so tiny Marcus was afraid to look too close. She looked fragile, like she might disappear if he blinked. But when he slipped his finger through the incubator's opening and touched her palm, her tiny fingers wrapped around his with surprising strength. "You're a fighter, aren't you? Just like your mom. You hang in there, Hope. Your mom needs you to fight. We both need you to fight." A nurse came to get him an hour later. Emma was awake, asking for him. Marcus followed her to a recovery room, heart hammering. Emma looked like she'd been through a war, pale as the sheets she lay on, dark circles under her eyes, tubes and monitors everywhere. But she was awake, alive. Her eyes found his the moment he walked in. "Hope? She's perfect. 3 pounds of pure determination." Marcus took Emma's hand, careful of the IV. "She's in the NICU, but she's breathing on her own. The doctors say that's remarkable for 27 weeks. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I want to see her. Soon." You need to rest first. You lost a lot of blood. They had to do a hysterectomy, didn't they? Emma's voice was flat. I heard them talking during surgery, before the anesthesia fully kicked in. They said they had no choice. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Emma, I'm so sorry. Don't be. She saved Hope. That's all that matters. She laughed, a broken sound that hurt to hear. I guess it's fitting. You can't have more kids. Now I can't either. We're perfect for each other. Emma, don't. It's okay. Really. I never wanted more than one anyway. Her eyes drifted closed. I'm just so tired. Then sleep. I'll be here when you wake up. But when Emma woke up again 6 hours later, everything had changed. She looked at Marcus like he was a stranger, spoke to him with polite distance, asked about Hope with clinical detachment that scared him more than her tears would have. The doctors called it shock, post-traumatic stress from the delivery, hormonal imbalances from the hysterectomy, depression from realizing she'd never carry another child. They prescribed medications, recommended therapy, said it would get better with time. It didn't. Emma saw Hope for the first time 3 days after the delivery. Marcus wheeled her down to the NICU in a wheelchair, watched her stare at their daughter through the plastic incubator walls with empty eyes. She's so small. Emma's voice was emotionless. Will she survive? The doctors say she has an 80% chance. She's doing better than they expected. 80%. So 20% chance she dies. Emma's laugh was hollow. Those were better odds than I had on the operating table. Lucky her. Emma. Marcus knelt beside the wheelchair. I know you're hurting. I know this isn't what you wanted. But Hope needs you. I need you. Do you? Emma finally looked at him. Or do you just need someone to help you take care of a baby you never wanted in the first place? Be honest, Marcus. If I hadn't gotten pregnant, would you have ever called me? Would you have ever thought about that night again? The question was cruel, deliberately so, but it was also fair. Yes, I thought about you every day. I looked for you in crowds. I kept your number in my phone even though I told myself I wouldn't call. And when you walked into my office and told me you were pregnant, part of me was terrified, but part of me was grateful, because it gave me an excuse to have you in my life. That's not good enough. Emma's voice broke. I can't be with someone who needs an excuse to want me. I can't raise a child with someone who sees her as an obligation instead of a choice. She's not an obligation. You're not an obligation. Then what are we? The question hung in the air. Marcus didn't have an answer. Or he had too many answers, and none of them were right. Emma went home 2 weeks later. Not to Marcus's penthouse. To her apartment in Queens. She was firm about it. Needed space, needed time. Needed to figure out how to be a mother to a baby who would spend months in the NICU before she was strong enough to come home. Marcus visited Hope every day, sometimes twice a day, sat beside her incubator and talked to her about everything and nothing, read her stories, played her music, learned how to do kangaroo care where he'd hold her tiny body against his bare chest, skin to skin, sharing warmth and heartbeats. Emma visited too, but never when Marcus was there. They coordinated through nurses, passed messages through doctors, co-parented their critically ill daughter while barely speaking to each other. Hope grew slowly, gained ounces that felt like victories, got strong enough to breathe without the ventilator, learned to suck and swallow, reached developmental milestones that made the NICU staff cheer. And through it all, Marcus watched Emma slip further away, watched the light in her eyes dim, watched her become a ghost of the woman he'd fallen in love with. At 6 weeks old, Hope was finally stable enough for Emma to do skin-to-skin care. Marcus watched from the doorway as Emma held their daughter for the first time since that brief wheelchair visit, watched her stare down at Hope's tiny face with an expression he couldn't read. Then Emma started to cry, not gentle tears, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Hope startled in her arms, making small, distressed sounds. I can't do this. Emma's words came between sobs. I can't love her. Every time I look at her, I remember almost dying. I remember them cutting me open and taking away any chance of having another child. I remember hearing them say they might have to choose between us. I can't, Marcus. I can't bond with her. I'm broken. Marcus took Hope gently, settling her back in her incubator before she could get too distressed. Then he pulled Emma into his arms while she fell apart. You're not broken. You're traumatized. You're grieving. But you're not broken. What if I never feel it? Emma pulled back, eyes red and desperate. What if I never feel that overwhelming love mothers are supposed to feel? What if I look at her and only see what she cost me? Then we'll work through it, together, one day at a time. Emma shook her head. I think you should raise her, take custody, give her the life she deserves with a parent who can actually love her. The words hit like a physical blow. You don't mean that. I do. Emma's voice was hollow. You have the money for the best nannies, the best schools, everything she could ever need. And you love her. I see the way you look at her, like she's the best thing that ever happened to you. She deserves that. Not a mother who has to force herself to hold her. She needs you. Marcus grabbed Emma's hands. Yes, she needs financial security, but more than that, she needs her mother. She needs you even if you can't see it right now. What she needs is therapy that I can't afford, and medication that makes me too foggy to work, and a mother who doesn't have panic attacks every time she holds her. Emma pulled away. I'm signing over custody, Marcus. My lawyer is drawing up the papers. You'll be a better parent alone than I could ever be. She left the NICU, left Marcus standing there with their daughter sleeping peacefully in her incubator, completely unaware that her mother had just walked away. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus tried everything, called Emma constantly, showed up at her apartment, begged her to reconsider, offered to pay for any therapy, any medication, any treatment she needed, promised they'd work through it together. Emma wouldn't budge. The custody papers arrived at his lawyer's office with her signature already on them. Full custody to Marcus Ashford. Limited visitation rights for Emma Brooks upon request. A formal dissolution of parental rights except for what the court mandated. Marcus could have fought it. His lawyers said he had grounds. Postpartum depression, trauma, temporary insanity. They could argue she wasn't in her right mind to make this decision. But Marcus looked at those papers and realized something heartbreaking. Emma was doing what she thought was best for Hope. She was walking away from her daughter because she loved her enough to know she couldn't be the mother Hope deserved right now. Maybe not ever. So he signed the papers, gave Emma the out she was asking for, and broke his own heart in the process. Hope came home at 3 months old, weighing 5 pounds. The NICU staff threw a little graduation party. Marcus brought cake and balloons and pretended his heart wasn't shattering because Emma wasn't there to celebrate with them. He hired a baby nurse, transformed his penthouse into a home designed for a medically fragile infant, learned how to use oxygen monitors and feeding pumps, and all the equipment that came with a micropreemie, took a leave of absence from his company because Hope needed round-the-clock care, and he refused to be an absent father. It was hard, harder than anything he'd ever done. Hope cried, a lot, struggled with reflux that made every feeding an ordeal, had developmental delays from being born so early, needed physical therapy and occupational therapy and more doctor appointments than Marcus could count. But she was his miracle, his impossible daughter, and he loved her with a ferocity that terrified him. Emma disappeared, changed her number, moved apartments. Her brother, now in remission and doing well, reached out once to Marcus, said Emma was getting help, going to intensive therapy, trying to heal from everything that had happened. But she'd asked him to tell Marcus not to try to contact her. She needed space to figure out who she was now. Marcus wanted to be angry, wanted to hate her for abandoning their daughter, but he couldn't, because he understood that sometimes love meant letting go. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do was walk away from something you loved because staying would destroy you both. 6 months passed. Hope was 9 months old now, small for her age but thriving. She'd caught up developmentally. Smiled and laughed and babbled. Reached for Marcus when he walked in the room. She was the light of his life, his reason for everything. But some nights after she was asleep, Marcus would sit at those floor-to-ceiling windows and remember Emma. Remember the way she'd laughed that first night at the bar. The fierce love in her voice when she talked about her brother. The way she looked at Hope's first ultrasound with such wonder and hope. He missed her, mourned the family they could have been, the life they'd almost built. But he had hope, his impossible, miraculous daughter. And sometimes that had to be enough. Then one evening, his doorman called up. "Mr. Ashford, there's a visitor here for you, a Miss Emma Brooks." Marcus's heart stopped. "Send her up." Emma looked different, healthier. She'd gained weight, color in her cheeks. But her eyes held a wariness that hurt to see. "Can I come in?" Marcus stepped aside. Emma walked into the penthouse like she was entering a stranger's home, which Marcus supposed she was. Hope was in her playpen, chewing on a stuffed elephant. She looked up when Emma entered, stared at this woman she didn't recognize. "She's gotten so big." Emma's voice cracked. "She's beautiful. She looks like you." Emma knelt beside the playpen, held out a tentative finger. Hope grabbed it with a squeal, more interested in putting it in her mouth than any recognition of who this person was. Tears streamed down Emma's face. I'm so sorry, for leaving, for abandoning you both, for being too broken to be the mother she deserved." Marcus knelt beside her. "You were surviving. That's all anyone can ask. I've been in intensive therapy, EMDR for trauma. Medication that actually works. I've been grieving everything I lost, the ability to have more children, the birth experience I wanted, the mother I thought I'd be." Emma looked at him. "And I've been grieving you, grieving us, grieving the family we could have been. We can still be that family. Can we?" Emma's voice was soft. "After everything? After I abandoned our daughter for 6 months? After I broke your heart? Hope needs her mother." Marcus wiped tears from Emma's face. "And I need you. If you're ready, if you want to try, we can figure this out together." Emma looked at Hope, who was still happily gnawing on her finger. "I don't know if I can be a good mother. I don't know if I'll ever feel that overwhelming love people talk about. But I want to try. I want to know her. I want to be part of her life even if I'm terrible at it." "You won't be terrible at it. You'll be human, and that's good enough." They started slowly. Emma came over 3 times a week, spent an hour or 2 with Hope under Marcus's supervision. It was awkward at first. Emma didn't know what to do with a 9-month-old who didn't know her. Hope cried when Emma held her, reaching for Marcus instead. It broke Emma's heart every time, but she kept trying, kept showing up, kept learning how Hope liked to be held and what songs made her smile and which books were her favorites. Marcus fell in love with Emma all over again, watching her fight for their daughter, watching her show up even when it was hard, even when Hope rejected her, even when every instinct probably told her to run. 3 months later, Hope finally smiled at Emma, really smiled, reached for her instead of Marcus. It was a small moment. But for Emma, it was everything. "She can love me." Emma said it with wonder, holding Hope close. "After everything, she can still love me. You're her mother. Of course she loves you." I didn't think I deserved it. None of us deserve the love we get. But we get it anyway. That's what makes it grace. Emma moved back in 2 months after that. Not into Marcus's room. She had her own space, her own boundaries. But she was there, part of Hope's daily life, learning to be a mother one day at a time. She and Marcus slowly rebuilt what they'd lost. It wasn't easy. Trust had to be earned back. Emma had to prove she wouldn't disappear again. Marcus had to learn to forgive the months he'd spent alone. But they were trying. That was enough. On Hope's 2nd birthday, Marcus proposed. Nothing fancy. Just the 3 of them at the penthouse. Hope covered in cake. Emma laughing at the mess. And Marcus, down on one knee with a ring he'd been carrying for 3 months, waiting for the right moment. "Emma, I'm not going to pretend the past 2 years have been easy. We've been through more pain than most people experience in a lifetime. But you're still here. You fought your way back to us. You chose us even when it was hard, even when everything in you said to run. I love you. I love the mother you've become. I love the woman you are, broken pieces and all. Will you marry me?" Emma looked at the ring, then at Hope, who was clapping and smashing more cake into her hair. Then at Marcus, kneeling on the floor of the life they'd built from ashes. Yes, if you'll have me. All of me. Including the parts that are still healing. I'll take every part of you, for the rest of my life. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the penthouse. Just family and close friends. Emma's brother walked her down the aisle, healthy and strong. Hope was the flower girl, toddling down the makeshift aisle and getting distracted by the rose petals halfway through. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect. But their story didn't end with a wedding, because real life doesn't end with one perfect moment. It continues, with hard days and beautiful days and everything in between. Emma struggled sometimes, had bad days where the trauma came back, where she'd look at Hope and remember almost dying, where she'd panic about being a bad mother. But she'd learned to talk about it, to ask for help, to believe Marcus when he told her she was enough. Marcus learned to share control, to trust Emma with Hope even when his protective instinct screamed, to accept that healing wasn't linear, that some days they'd take steps backward. But as long as they kept moving forward together, that was okay. They had more children. Through adoption, 2 boys who joined their family when Hope was 5 and 7. Emma couldn't carry them, but she could love them. And that turned out to be enough. Hope grew, started kindergarten, made friends, learned that families came in all shapes, that sometimes the people who loved you most had to fight the hardest to be able to do it. 10 years after that night at the bar, Marcus stood at those floor-to-ceiling windows with Emma beside him. Hope was playing in the next room with her brothers. The penthouse that had once felt like a lonely tower now hummed with life and noise and the beautiful chaos of family. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked quietly. "That night? Everything that came after?" Marcus pulled her close. "Never. Not even the hard parts. Because they brought us here, to this moment, to this life." Emma leaned into him. "I used to think loving someone meant it had to be easy, that if it was real it wouldn't hurt so much. And now I know that real love means choosing someone even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Emma turned to face him. "You chose me when I was broken, when I couldn't choose myself, when I walked away from our daughter because I was too scared to fail her. And you came back. That's what matters. But what if I hadn't?" Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "What if the therapy hadn't worked? What if I'd stayed broken?" Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Then I would have loved you broken. Would have raised Hope to know her mother loved her, even if she couldn't be with her. Would have waited however long it took. Because Emma, you're it for me. You always were." From that first night, they stood there as evening settled over the city. In the next room, Hope shrieked with laughter as her brothers tickled her. The sound of family, the sound of home. But their story still wasn't perfect, because real stories never are. When Hope turned 12, she started asking questions. Hard questions about why her baby photos showed only Marcus. Why there were no pictures of Emma in the hospital. Why her birth story was different from her brother's adoption stories. Marcus and Emma sat her down one evening after her brothers were in bed. Told her the truth about the pregnancy complications, about the emergency delivery, about Emma's struggle with postpartum depression and trauma so severe she'd had to walk away. Hope listened with eyes too old for 12. When they finished, she was quiet for a long time. "So you left me?" She looked at Emma. "When I was a baby, you just left?" Emma's hands shook. "Yes. It's the thing I regret most in my life. I was sick, Hope, in my mind and my heart, and I thought you'd be better off without me. But you came back. I did, when I was healthy enough to be the mother you deserved." Hope processed this. Her face cycled through emotions. Hurt, confusion, anger. Finally, something that looked like understanding. "My friend Chloe's mom has depression. She has bad days where she can't get out of bed. Chloe says it's not her mom's fault. That she's sick. Is that what happened to you?" "Yes." Emma's voice broke. "That's exactly what happened. And you got help? You got better?" "I did. I still have hard days sometimes. Days where I have to work extra hard to be okay, but I'm better now. And I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Hope stood, walked over to Emma, hugged her with the fierce intensity only a 12-year-old could manage. I'm glad you came back, even if it took a while. Emma held her daughter and cried. Marcus watched them and felt his heart break and heal at the same time. But that wasn't the last hard conversation. When Hope was 15, she got her first serious boyfriend. Started talking about her future, about wanting kids someday. Lots of them. Emma sat with her one evening while Marcus was traveling for business. They were painting Hope's nails, something that had become their ritual. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you wish you could have had more kids, like biological ones? Hope kept her eyes on her nails. Does it bother you that you can't? Emma was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Yes and no. I grieved it when it first happened, grieved the choice being taken away. But Hope, I have you, and I have your brothers, and that's more than I ever dreamed I'd have during those dark months after you were born. But you wanted more. Before everything happened. You told me you did. I wanted a lot of things before I almost died. Emma set down the nail polish. But almost dying taught me something important. It's not about the life you planned, it's about the life you build from whatever pieces you're given. Even broken pieces, especially broken pieces. They make the most interesting mosaics. Hope smiled. That's really deep, Mom. I have my moments. They painted nails in comfortable silence. Then Hope spoke again, quieter this time. I'm scared sometimes that I'll have what you had, that I'll have a baby and won't be able to love it, that I'll be broken like you were. Emma pulled Hope close. Listen to me. What I had was trauma. It was a perfect storm of physical complications and mental health issues and circumstances that converged in the worst possible way. It doesn't mean you'll have it. And even if you struggle, you'll know the signs. You'll get help earlier. You'll have support. Did you have support? Not at first. I pushed everyone away, including your dad. That was my mistake. Emma stroked Hope's hair. But you're not me, baby girl. You're stronger, braver. You'll make different choices. I'm only brave because you showed me how. Hope looked up. You came back even when it was hard. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Later that night, Emma called Marcus, told him about the conversation, about Hope's fears. She's growing up. Marcus's voice was warm through the phone, asking the hard questions. She's afraid she'll be like me, that she'll break the way I did. Then we tell her the truth. That strength isn't never breaking. It's breaking and choosing to heal anyway. You taught her that, Emma, by living it. When Hope was 17, she wrote a college essay about her mother, about mental health and trauma and the courage it takes to ask for help, about how the strongest person she knew was someone who'd walked away because she loved too much to stay broken. Emma read it with tears streaming down her face. Hope had submitted it to a national writing contest. It won first place. At the awards ceremony, Hope stood on stage and looked directly at Emma in the audience. This essay is about my mom, who taught me that love isn't perfect, that families aren't perfect, that people aren't perfect, but perfect isn't the point. Showing up is the point. Trying is the point. Choosing each other every day is the point. The audience applauded. Emma couldn't stop crying. Marcus held her hand and felt grateful for every hard moment that had led them here. But the universe wasn't done testing them. When Hope was 19, Emma's brother relapsed again. The leukemia that had been in remission for almost 20 years came back with a vengeance. Aggressive, resistant to treatment, the doctors gave him months. Emma spiraled. Not like before. She didn't walk away, didn't shut down completely, but Marcus could see the edges fraying, the fear creeping back in. I can't lose him. Emma said it over and over. He's all I have left of my family, of my parents. I can't lose him. You won't lose him alone. Marcus held her through the panic attacks. I'm here. Hope is here. We'll get through this together. They did. Emma was with her brother when he died 6 months later, held his hand, told him their parents would be proud, that he'd fought the good fight, that it was okay to rest now. She fell apart after the funeral, but this time, She let herself fall apart with people around her. Let Marcus hold her while she cried. Let Hope make her tea and sit with her in silence. Let their sons, now teenagers themselves, give her awkward hugs and tell her they loved her. She grieved, hard and messy and real. But she didn't disappear, didn't walk away, stayed present even when it hurt. I'm so tired of losing people. Emma said it one night, lying in bed with Marcus. First my parents, then almost Hope, then almost myself, now my brother. When does it stop hurting? It doesn't. Marcus pulled her closer. You just learn to carry it better, to make room for the grief alongside the joy. Is there still joy after all this loss? Marcus thought about Hope graduating high school with honors, about their son's soccer games and school plays, about the life they'd built from impossible circumstances. Yes, there's still joy. You just have to look for it harder sometimes. Emma's grief transformed over time. She started volunteering with a support group for parents dealing with postpartum mental health issues. Shared her story, helped other mothers who were drowning the way she once had. One evening, she came home from a meeting with light in her eyes Marcus hadn't seen in months. I helped someone today. Really helped them. A mom who was planning to walk away from her baby. I told her my story and she broke down crying. Said she thought she was the only one who felt that way. We talked for hours. She's getting help now. Real help. You saved her. Marcus kissed her forehead. The way you wished someone had saved you. Maybe that's why I went through it. Emma's voice was quiet. So I could help someone else not feel so alone. Their sons graduated high school, went to college, built lives of their own. Hope finished medical school and became a psychiatrist specializing in maternal mental health. She dedicated her career to helping women like Emma, to making sure no mother felt alone in the darkness. Marcus and Emma grew old together, not gracefully. They argued about stupid things, forgot anniversaries, drove each other crazy in the way only people who'd been together for decades could. But they chose each other every single day. When Marcus turned 65, he retired from his pharmaceutical company, spent his time traveling with Emma, spoiling grandchildren Hope gave them, watching their sons build families of their own. One evening, back at that same penthouse where everything had started, Marcus and Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city glittered below. Above, stars pushed through light pollution. Hope was visiting with her own daughter, 3 months old, born healthy and full term. Emma had been there for the delivery, had held Hope's hand through every contraction, had whispered, "You're doing amazing and I'm so proud of you and you're going to be an incredible mother." And when Hope's daughter was born, Emma had cried. But this time, they were tears of pure joy. "Do you remember the first time we stood here?" Marcus asked. "The night we met? I remember thinking you were too handsome to be real, too kind to be genuine." Emma laughed. "I thought I'd wake up and it would all be a dream. Did you ever imagine it would lead here? To this life? Never. I couldn't have imagined any of this." Emma turned to face him. "The good or the bad, the joy or the pain, all of it. Would you change it? If you could go back, do it differently?" Emma was quiet for a long time. In the next room, they could hear Hope singing to her daughter, the same lullaby Emma used to sing to Hope once she'd come back. Once she'd learned how to be a mother? "No, I wouldn't change it, because changing it would mean losing what we found, and what we found was worth every moment of pain." Marcus pulled her close. They'd both been through things that should have broken them. Him with his sterility diagnosis that turned out to be not quite absolute. Her with trauma that nearly destroyed her. Together with a premature baby who beat impossible odds. But they'd survived, more than survived. They'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. "I love you," Marcus said it simply. After all these years, after everything. "I love you. I love you too. Even when you load the dishwasher wrong." He laughed. Some things never change. Hope came out of the bedroom, her daughter asleep in her arms. She looked at her parents standing at the window, still holding each other after all these years. "You two are disgustingly cute. We earned it." Emma smiled. "Paid for it in therapy bills and tears and more hard days than I can count. We get to be disgustingly cute now." Hope sat down with her sleeping daughter. looked at her with such overwhelming love it took Emma's breath away. "Mom." Hope's voice was soft. "Thank you for coming back. I know it was hard. I know you were scared. But thank you for choosing us even when you didn't think you could." Emma sat beside her daughter, looked at this tiny granddaughter who represented hope in every possible way. "You made it worth coming back to. Both of you." She looked at Marcus. "All of you." They sat there as night deepened over Manhattan. 3 generations of a family that shouldn't have existed, built on a one-night stand between two broken people who'd found each other in a hotel bar. Sustained through impossible pregnancies and traumatic births and mental health crises that nearly destroyed them. But they'd survived. They'd chosen each other. Every day through every hard moment, they'd chosen love. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Hope's daughter stirred in her sleep, made small baby sounds that tugged at something primal in Emma's chest. She remembered those sounds. Remembered being too broken to appreciate them the first time around. But she appreciated them now. Every coo, every tiny movement, every precious moment. "Can I hold her?" Emma asked. Hope smiled. "Of course." Emma took her granddaughter carefully, felt the familiar weight of an infant in her arms, looked down at this perfect little face, and felt her heart expand in ways she'd thought were lost forever. "Welcome to our beautiful mess of a family, little one," Emma whispered. "We're not perfect. We're not easy. But we love fiercely. We show up even when it's hard. And we never ever give up on each other." Marcus watched his wife hold their granddaughter, watched their daughter smile at them both, thought about the sterile diagnosis that had defined his life for so long, the diagnosis that had turned out to be not quite accurate, the miracle that had led to hope, to Emma, to this family. Sometimes the best things in life came from impossible circumstances. Sometimes broken pieces fit together in ways that made something stronger than the original. Sometimes sterile didn't mean the end of the story. It just meant the beginning would be more miraculous when it finally came. The city lights glittered. The baby slept. The family existed in this moment of perfect peace that they'd fought so hard to find. And Marcus Ashford, billionaire who'd once stood at these windows, feeling empty despite having everything, finally understood what true wealth meant. It wasn't the money, wasn't the empire, wasn't any of the things he'd spent his life building. It was this. These people, this love, this family that had been forged in fire and trauma and impossible odds. This was everything, and it was more than enough.